Well, we're back with part 3 on the 2016 CFmoto Zforce 800 Trail. If you guys missed the last 2 videos on this machine, we ended up picking this thing up for $2,500 from a guy who said his grandparents owned it. And he said that they went out one day and tried to start it. Nothing would happen when you turn the key, so it had no power going to the ignition. We got this thing back home, started diagnosing it, and found that it was the relay. So we actually got the starter to work, and it actually turned over and fired up briefly for a split second, and then the one-way bearing quit. And so we had to tear into that. While tearing into that, we found that the flywheel was all chewed up, the crank was all chewed up, the woodruff key was all broken off. So it looks like he didn't torque down the flywheel. So flywheel was wrecked, woodruff key was wrecked, and the crank was wrecked. So last video, we put a new flywheel on, new woodruff key, and then we got that installed along with the one-way bearing. And then we also replaced the cam chain on this cylinder right here. This cylinder supposedly is new. That cam chain felt good. This one was not. This one was absolutely horrible. Probably the worst cam chain I've ever seen in my life. It was bad. So last video we replaced everything, the cam chain, the crank, the one-way bearing, and the woodruff key. Got that all buttoned up. And we put new coolant in it, new oil in it. We went to go fire this thing up and it would crank slow. So I ran the jumper to the battery, still cranked slow. I took the spark plugs out, still cranked slow. So it's either the starter we figured out or the battery. So a lot of people in the comments said even if you have a jumper pack connected to a dead battery, it'll draw too many amps from that jumper pack and won't turn over the engine if you have a bad battery. And this battery had a ton of connections going to it. It has one for the winch. These two are supposed to be connected, and then one for the light. So it had 4 different connections going to it when it really only should have 2. So we're gonna hook up these 2 and then a ground and see if that fixes our problem first. If that doesn't, we bought a brand new starter for it. Right here from Niche Industries from Amazon. I think it was like 40 bucks. And then we bought a brand new battery for it. So this one was like 180 bucks. It's got 400 cold cranking amps. And yeah, that was an expensive battery. So hopefully between the battery, the starter, we can get this one up, running and driving by the end of the video. All right, so right now the plugs are out of it. We're going to keep those out for now, and we're going to attach a battery to it and see if it cranks with the new battery. If it doesn't, then we're gonna take the starter out and replace that. Last video, we took out the starter, if you guys remember, and we bench tested it, and it seemed pretty good. It seemed like it had pretty decent power when we hooked up the jumper to it. So I'm thinking it was just the battery. It should be the exact size of the other one. So it should fit. Let's see. This comes up. Get all these wires out of the way. Should drop in here. It's not a small battery, that's for sure. So this one. All right, battery's all hooked up. Let's see if it cranks over here. I'm gonna guess probably not. Nope. Still cranks really, really slow. Darn. All right, watch how slow it cranks down here. So it wasn't the battery. Does not sound good. Sounds like it's really struggling. And that's with the plugs out, so that is not good at all. What we're gonna do is now take off the starter and replace that, see if that fixes our problem. You can see the starter right in here. We have to take off the positive wire going to the starter first. Let's get that off. Alright. That's off. Now, if you look in here, there's a bolt there and one down there that has to come out. Then we can pull that starter out. You can kind of see it through here. That one and one down there. So the easiest one is going to be this one. The hard one is where you can't see it. One bolt out. Now the tricky one. Reach back here and fit your hand in there. Alright, let's see if I can get that out. It's almost impossible. There we go. Second one out. Now we can pull that starter out of here, hopefully. Sometimes we have to knock that free. Oh, it's coming. There we go. Alright. Starter is out. Spin smoothly. We'll bench test both of the starter, so the old one compared to the new one, see what it sounds like. All right, here is the old starter. That's the stock one. Let's just see if the new one matches up. Yep, looks perfect. See what that one feels like. All right, let's bench test the old one first. We'll put the positive on here. And then we'll take our negative and touch it to the starter. And we'll see what happens here. Sounds a little crunchy. Doesn't sound horrible though, it definitely has enough power. Here's the new one. Connected to that post. Let's see if this one sounds a little stronger. Hopefully it does. Sounds a little bit better, doesn't it? Well, hopefully that's the case. I'm hoping it was the starter. That one definitely sounds better than the other one. But is it enough to cause a slow cranking problem? We'll find out right now. New starter going in. All right, starter is in there, all hooked up. So let's see if that was our problem. Well, here we go, moment of truth. Let's see what happens. doing the exact same thing. So it wasn't the starter, it wasn't the battery. Uh-oh. Watch, it's just slow cranking. Oh, what the heck? It's a little better, but it's still really slow. So that was not the problem. And that's with the plug's out. So imagine with the plug's in, it's gonna be like nothing. Not good. Not good at all. Alright, I went ahead and added another ground from the cover here, which was the original ground, to the actual engine. And it cranks over a little bit faster, but still pretty slow. We're gonna see if it's enough to start this thing up. So, I think it might be. We put the plugs in it, we've got the plugs back in. Let's see what happens now. Alright, hopefully we didn't fry the starter yet. Let's see what happens. She fired up! Look at that! Alright, it's running, but I can tell something's going on. It's getting hot really fast. Usually if like a bearing's tight, it'll get really hot while it's spinning and heat up the whole engine really fast. But she fired up, so timing's spot on. It sounded pretty good. It just sounds like it's tight, like it's struggling to turn over. You can see some coolant leaking out of here as well. It probably just needs to be tightened down a little bit. But okay, well, at least she fired up. That's a good sign. I didn't hear any knocking, which is another good sign. So let's run it for a little bit and just kind of periodically check on it. Hopefully it's not too tight. Let's try running it again here. Sounding pretty good now. Maybe it was just a little bit tight from the installment of the bearing. No coolant coming out of the pipe or anything. A little smoke. So she's smoking pretty good. Can't tell if that's cooling or not. It might be. Maybe the head gasket is bad. See what the temp is. It's not overheating. Give it a couple revs. Sounds pretty good revving it out. Just smoking quite a bit. Yeah. I can't tell if it's a head gasket problem or not. We're gonna have to come up by the coolant and see if it's bubbling over. We'll see if it shoots out of there when we start this thing up. That would mean there's air getting into the system. Most likely a head gasket issue. We'll see. Let's get a little bit more cooling in there. Looks like it sucked up some. Yeah, there's a lot of air in the system. So let's take a look at this. If it spurts out coolant when we start this thing up, most likely head gasket issue. Let's see what happens. No. Stayed the same. Awesome. So now the head gasket. Alright, so far so good. It's just smoking a little bit right now. And that's about it. Otherwise, it seems to be running pretty strong. So we don't have a head gasket issue, which is good. That means coolant probably isn't burning off. I think we just have to bleed the system, get all that air out. And I'm gonna check the oil again too. Last time we put 2.5 quarts and I think it takes almost 3. So probably sucked up some of the oil to the head. So let's get that oil checked, topped off, and then we can run this thing for a little bit longer, see if any issues pop up. See if codes pop up on the dash, and we'll see what happens. But so far, so good. All right, we got the coolant topped off, oil topped off. Let's run this thing for a little bit, see if it gets up to temp, see if that cooling system's working, and then we can start putting everything back together. So we'll see if she fires up again. Go. Sounds pretty good. Fired right up. Seems like it's turning over a lot better. Sounds really good. See if there's any codes on the dash. No codes popping up. That's a good sign. Here's the temp. We're going to keep an eye on that. And then what you want to do is come over to the lines over here and just feel that the return line's getting hot. So right down here, this one's cold, this one's hot right now. So this one should be getting hot. And we can see if that fan comes on too. And you can touch up here as well. That one's hot. There's a line right here. That one's hot. So all the cooling lines are getting hot. It's a good sign. So far, so good. Give it a couple revs. Sounds pretty powerful. It's smoking a little bit though. Hoping that clears up. This thing's been sitting for a while, so maybe those rings in the cylinder are a little bit stuck. But we'll let this run for a couple minutes and just see what happens. Looking for any leaking from the hoses. So far, no leaking at all. here. Coming over here, the return line's getting hot. So both these lines are now warm. So water pump is working. Temp gauge is going up. So I believe once this thing is like 200 degrees, the fan will kick on. It's looking pretty good, besides the smoke coming out of the pipe, which I'm hoping will go away. Temp gauge is staying right there, so it's not overheating at all. Sounds great. All right, now that it's warm, let's see if she fires right back up here. Fires up every time. We might be good. Well, this thing's running pretty good, so let's go ahead and get the clutch back on. Get this wheel zipped off. All right, secondary going on first here. grooves have to line up perfectly. So it's just a matter of luck getting that on. All right, finally it's in place. Now we've got our nut going on. That gets torqued down. That's on there pretty darn tight now. All right, now we can get our primary on. So we can get this piece on. This goes on right here. That. You've got this roller piece that goes on like that. And you've got this piece that goes on here. And you've got your nut. Crank that down, then we can get the belt on. Spreading this apart here. Alright, belt is on. Looking good. Alright, now we're going to try to start up the machine and see what that looks like spinning around. Let's see. Alright, it shouldn't spin. So, that's what it should be doing. That looks good. Give it a little throttle. There's something grinding in there. What the heck is that? Must be the clutch. That's weird. does that weird noise at idle. Otherwise, I don't hear anything when you rev it. Alright, that noise basically went away here. Alright, clutch cover going back on here. There we go. This air filter box on. All right, this thing's finally all back together, all good to go. So we got the seats in, all the plastics back on. Everything's looking pretty good here. Got the bed back on, all bolted down. Got it all vacuumed out. So it does need a good pressure washing, but other than that, it's really not too bad. So what we're gonna do is fire this thing up, let it warm up for a little bit, and then attempt to take it for the first ride. Hopefully that clutch is still good. CFmotos are known for their clutch problems, so hopefully this one's fine and this thing moves good and doesn't slip. We'll find out here soon enough, but let's fire this thing up and see how it runs today. Turns over pretty good now. Sounds pretty decent too. No clutch noise at idle. It's a good sign. overall it's running pretty darn good. Has really good power. My clutch is actually feeling pretty decent too. It grabs right away. But I'm not seeing any leaking at all. No leaking whatsoever from the engine. The fan did kick on one time at idle here. You can see the temp is not going past halfway. There the fan comes on. So that's normal at idle to do that. So fan is kicking on, the heating system's working, lines are all hot. Everything's working the way it should. We got the winch working, the lights are working. Low, high, reverse, all the gears work. So, yeah, this one's pretty good. The only thing I see wrong with it is when you come to a stop and let it coast, you can hear a little noise in the clutch. But I think that's normal for the CFmotos. We'll ride it around some more and see if it bothers us, but I don't think it's a huge deal. I've been riding this thing for like an hour and it hasn't caused any issues. But yeah, it's pretty zippy, pretty fun. So far I'm pretty happy with it. I'm gonna quick take the cover off and check the oil one last time. Can we get to it from there? I think we can. Yep. We're also looking to make sure that the oil is not milky. That can mean that your water pump seals are bad. Oil doesn't look milky at all. Get this back in here if you can. And you can see we're right up to the top line right there. So oil looks good. All right, still topped off. So that's good, we can get that back on. All right, one last check I want to do before we really go and rip this thing at the land. So I want to see if the battery's charging properly. So let's take this off. And we want to see if this thing overcharges or doesn't charge enough. So usually over like 15.5 volts is too much. Anything under 13 is too little. So let's get our voltmeter on here and see what we get. All right, we're at 13. Let's see what happens when we crank it over. Give it a couple revs, see what we get. That's good, 13.7, 13.5. So it's definitely charging, not overcharging though. So that definitely checks out. All right, let's quick test the fuel. Let's see what that looks like. See if there's any water in here. Doesn't look the greatest, a little dark. But I don't see any water in there. It looks a little cloudy. That could be what we're seeing coming out of the exhaust. There's a lot of gas in there. Well, it appears everything checks out. Oil level looks good, coolant level looks good, the battery is charging properly, and now we have new fuel in the gas tank. So let's go ahead and take this thing to the land, see how it rips. Well, after riding this thing hard for another 2 hours, you know, we really don't have any major issues, but I did notice that the belt is slipping a little bit. So we're gonna order up a new belt for it. I think that one's pretty old. You could see all the belt material in the clutch case when we took that off initially. So it wouldn't be bad to order up a new belt. I think that'll take care of our slipping problem. And then the smoking issue is still happening. You know, when you're really on it, you can see a puff of white smoke come out of the pipe. So I think there's some blow-by the rings. I'm not sure which cylinder. I'm pretty sure the guy who sold it to me rebuilt and put a new head and piston on the front cylinder. So I'm wondering if this one has a little bit of blow-by and maybe those rings are a little bit worn. We did see quite a bit of sand in the air filter, so maybe those rings are just a little bit worn down. It wouldn't be a bad idea to rebuild the rear cylinder. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty solid. So what we're probably gonna do is rebuild that rear cylinder, take everything back apart, just rebuild that, just so we don't have that blow-by. Put some new plugs in it, get that new clutch belt for it, and we should be almost perfect. Everything else is working great. So we are really close to getting this one finished up, and we came a long way from where this thing sat when we first bought it. I mean, it wouldn't even turn on. So now, I mean, it runs, starts, idles good, has good power, and really the only thing is it's slipping a little bit with the clutch and the smoke every once in a while. Other than that, she's pretty good. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, you know, picking it up for 2,500 bucks, diagnosing it, rebuilding it, doing the first start, and then the first ride today. It's definitely a good feeling getting this one up, running and driving after all that work. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Stay tuned for the next video. And until next time, we are out.